Welcome to an all new episode of Looks and Wisdom Sundays with me, Aluchi B. Hi, guys, and welcome to another exciting episode of Looks and Wisdom Sundays with me, Aluchi B, aka the Elusive Pundit. Honey, how are you feeling? I'm actually better. Last week, I was literally dying from flu, and I don't know if you guys picked that up on last week's video, but literally, I was like at the end of whatever wits I had at the time. And this week, I'm still very much fluish, but it's better. You can like pick it up if I cough, which is like a horrible cough. I'm not gonna do a trial run for you guys. But let's get back into Looks and Wisdom Sundays. It's a new month, and the new month is April. So you guys know that every month we choose a new topic to focus on as like the overarching theme for the month. And then I break down that big theme into like smaller themes. The overarching theme for this month is emotions as messengers. Emotions as messengers. Basically, what emotions come to tell us. And I will be breaking this down further into different types of emotions that we experience. There are a lot of them, so I will not be covering all of the emotions. I will only be covering 4 because we only have 4 episodes for the month, and I will be focusing on the main ones that are sort of like big in the emotion streets. And this week we will be talking about anger, and then I've got other emotions. I don't want to give it away. I don't like giving the whole thing away. I like people coming here and being surprised about what I'm going to talk about. But this week we are focusing on anger as an emotion and what that anger is trying to tell us as a message. So I will be breaking down my talk into 3 main talking points. The first one is sort of like an overarching definition of emotions for this month. And then secondly, I will get into anger, its definition. And then thirdly, we will be speaking about how to manage anger. And then we'll close this off. So without further ado, let's get into the first one. Yeah, got me feeling emotions. What is emotions? What are emotions? You know what? English is not my mother tongue. So we'll just finesse it as we do it. So the definition of emotions according to the American Psychology Association is: emotions are conscious mental reactions like anger and fear, subjectively experienced as strong feelings, usually directed towards a specific object, and are typically accompanied by psychological and behavioral changes in the body. I wanted to read that as slow as I could because I don't want to read it good. And I just want to get into the most important thing from that definition. So emotions are conscious mental reactions subjectively experienced as strong feelings, usually directed towards a specific object and typically accompanied by psychological and behavioral changes in the body. So number 1, conscious mental reaction. So the whole thing you experience every time there's an emotion that comes about is that it sits in your mental space, in your head, so you can't physically see it. Secondly, emotions are subjectively experienced as strong feelings. So my emotion or how I experience it is very different from the next person, and it's triggered by different things, and we can be triggered by the same thing and also experience different reactions. If my cat dies, I probably will lose my mind, but if someone else's cat dies, they probably are going to be fine about it. So you're not triggered the same way. The same way in which if I'm angry, I react a certain way, the other person might react a certain way. Like for me, as a person, I like anger as a messenger. Really, like, okay, I'm angry about this, but I don't like dwelling into it or like letting it get into psychological and behavioral changes in the body. So let's get into now our emotion for this week: anger. Getting into anger, I actually feel like anger is the most misunderstood emotion. Okay, most of them, all of them are misunderstood if you don't view them as a messenger, like someone who's coming to tell you something. But anger sits at the top in terms of emotions that are understood. And I could understand that because of the effect, what it usually leads to, which is violence induced and behavioral changes that are not necessarily positive. But that's not anger, that is the reaction to anger. So let's get it right. It's a reaction to anger, but not anger itself, because anger is completely something different. And here is what the definition of anger is, according to the American Psychology Association again. So anger is an emotion categorized by antagonism towards someone or something you feel has deliberately done you wrong. So anger can be a good anger or a bad anger. And a good anger is anger that motivates you towards finding solution to a problem. And then bad anger is you finding a way in which you can express negative feelings and also negative behaviors. Just to summarize that in a more simplified way in which I understand anger, I always tell people that anger is an emotion that comes when a certain expectation that you had is not met, whether you communicated this expectation or not, but it wasn't met, and that is now coming to you as dissatisfaction or unhappiness. For example, so this is how I get angry easy. I'm chilling here at home doing nothing. Hey B, listen, I'll buy you a diamond necklace. Oh, okay, that's nice, I like it. Okay, bye. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And then I'm gonna get angry because what was the reason? Like, what provoked you in this world that we live in to call me and make promises and then not live up to the promises? So that is my anger. Like, I hate that part. Like literally that makes me so angry. And again, going back to the anger being an expectation that was not met. So my anger is usually from someone promising something that doesn't happen. So you brought the expectation to me and then you didn't meet it. So that is making me angry. And then another version of expectation not being met is when you ask someone to do something for you. Hey, can you please take my car to the car wash? Okay, I'll do it today. Okay, yeah, I'll do it later today. Tomorrow, the car's not washed. And I mean, you had an expectation because the person agreed and that expectation was not met. And then that what makes you angry. So the American Association definition is great because it says anger is an emotion categorized by antagonism towards something or someone you feel has deliberately done you wrong. So how do you get done wrong? Literally by expectation, whether it was induced from the outside or whether you asked for that expectation to be implemented and it wasn't. And then going back to my main core theme, which I will always go to. So if you are angry, it's literally a communication from your own body to your own body telling you that something did not happen the way you planned it. So now it's triggering some mental, psychological things in your brain for you to react in order for you to find a solution. Whether that's going to be done in a good way or whether it's going to be done in a bad way, but you're going to have to find a solution anyway. So what am I going to do? Scream and shout? I don't do the screaming and shouting. I wish I did, but I mean, it's not me. But I'm just going to be like, yeah, cut you out. So my reaction when I get angry, and it's mainly because people are not meeting what they said they were going to do, I definitely write them off. Like, that's, I know it's a bad thing. I know it's a bad thing, but I'm very tolerable. So when I write you off, it means that you've been very, very consistent in the BS. And I mean, at some point, like, I have to do something. But other people, like, get violent with their expectations not being met. So they want to get physical, they want to beat you up, they want to stab you, they want to like hire people to kill you, and those type of things. So that's the reaction though, that's the effect, not the cause. So the cause though is understanding that anger is telling you that an expectation you were waiting for was not met, then boom. Or something external happens that then makes you become angry, like usually out of your control. So again, anger as a message is telling you something in particular pertaining to an expectation or a need. So now that we at least have like a little bit of understanding of what anger is, I'll get into some ways in which you can control anger. And I would like to make a disclaimer. I probably should have done this earlier, but we're not talking about repeated anger that then sits and form anger issues that are now embedded because you have sat on that anger for a long time. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about anger that comes in and out as you move about in your life. There are people who inherently have anger issues, and those need to be addressed by a psychologist in a clinical setting. I'm just talking about anger as like an everyday feeling that we all experience. Some of the ways in which we can control anger. So firstly, you need to be able to identify anger as it comes to you. It's a feeling, but that feeling, you need to be able to give it a name as it's happening to you. So as soon as it's like, oops, you feel it in your heart, like, what is that? It's anger. So you need to be able to identify anger as soon as it comes in. That's how you can control anger. Knowing it, feeling it. You feel the anger. I'm very in touch with myself and my emotions, so I can identify them as soon as they come in. Like, okay, that's anger. That's disappointment. That's anxiety. That's fear. So I'm very good at knowing which emotion is what, and that's because I like sit with myself a lot. But be able to identify that particular emotion, and in this case, that particular emotion is anger. When it comes in, be able to identify it and call it out immediately. Anger, it's you. I feel it's you. I feel it's you. Yeah, it is anger. And then after you have identified the feeling as anger at this point, figure out why it has come to visit. Like we did speak about expectation, because anger usually comes from expectations not being met. So why is anger coming to visit me? Is it because someone didn't pick my phone call? Is it because I'm in an unhappy space, so everything that's happening in and around me is pissing me off, especially when I see people happy and I'm not happy? Is it because I'm pissed off that my sister ate my last piece of chicken that I left in the fridge? Like, identify why anger as an emotion has come to visit you. And then number 3, so now you have felt the anger, you have identified it, you have figured out why the anger is there, then figure out a way in which you can address the anger. Like I said, when my expectations are not met, people are making unnecessary promises, I'm provoked. Okay. And then figure out a way in which you can address. So that's that actionable item. That is that effect we were talking about. Other people, once they figure out they're angry, or maybe because they haven't figured out they're angry, there's just an emotion, then they go into violence mode, then they go into screaming and shouting, then they go into all these other particular ways in which you express anger on the other side. So again, be able to identify and name the emotion as it's coming in. 2, figure out why that emotion is there. 3, get to actionable item. How are you going to deal with this? And we're talking about anger, so it's you, anger. Why are you here? Oh, I'm here because of this. Oh, thank you. Then let's get into actionable items. How do we address the situation so we can swiftly move into the next phase? And then while we're here, I wanted to speak about the fact that as you are experiencing your emotions and they are telling you what the emotion is, and you sit with the emotion to try to understand what its message is for you today, and then you figure out how to action after the fact, is sometimes as human beings we have something called the blind spot. And a blind spot is when you definitely didn't communicate that expectation in a way that was comprehensive to the other person on the other end. For example, I can't be angry at my little sister for not taking the chicken out of the fridge to defrost while I was at work if I didn't communicate that efficiently in a way that they understand it. So when you are experiencing anger and you want to have these feelings, also think about the fact that, was there a blind spot in which I didn't communicate in a comprehensible manner to the next person to be able to understand what the expectation was from them to me? Because sometimes you get pissed off alone unnecessarily, and you turn and then you look around and it's like, oh, I never sent that text. That's why they didn't respond. So we have come to the end of the episode, but I really want to recap again. Emotions are what we feel as things are happening in our lives. Secondly, the emotion that we're speaking about this week is anger. So anger comes from expectations not being met, and you need to understand how to address that. So when anger visits, you need to accept the emotion and then identify it. Secondly, figure out why anger is there. And then thirdly, find actionable ways in which you can deal with the anger. And then always know that as a human beings, we all have blind spots. Before you popcorn and come into actionable items, figure out if maybe you had a blind spot that you didn't address before. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you guys next week when we speak about another emotion. Please do like, please do comment, please do subscribe, and I appreciate you guys for being here. Have a lovely Sunday.